Cool. Awesome. So hi and welcome everyone. Yeah, it's been a long flex week, especially with convocation and everything like that, and division meetings, department meetings. So thank you for joining this session. But yeah, so my name is Matthew Chase. If you haven't met me, I'm the instructional services librarian at Cuyamaca. So essentially, I am primarily in charge of everything that goes with instructional support for faculty when it comes to providing instruction or scheduling other librarians to provide instruction, and other types of research support services also for our students as well. So like making sure that we have librarians available for students for one-on-one consultations and so on. So a lot of those different services that we're going to be covering here, uh, I pretty much help manage it in some fashion or form. In addition to being the department chair, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, so basically this session is going to be focusing on research tools and research support services that the library can provide. That's kind of our bread and butter when it comes to the library. Being able to provide students with equitable access to information, especially with the whole global research landscape being mostly paywalled with subscriptions and other types of service fees. The library can definitely support that, and that also goes out to our faculty as well. So yeah, hopefully you'll learn something kind of new or something you never knew about the library. I'm always excited when that happens. Uh, if you want to provide a comment or a question, feel free to leave it in the chat. I'll be sure to monitor that throughout the time, as well as unmute yourself if you'd like to as well. Again, I like to have a conversation. So with that, we'll get into it. Yeah, so just to kind of cover an agenda, I guess I kind of started to touch on this, but basically what I really wanted to focus on here is several different types of research tools that are available through the library. Some are kind of existing that we've already had for several years, but there's also a couple that I would like to kind of highlight a little bit more because they're fairly recent actually. And then also going into our instructional support services. So basically how we can, as librarians, visit your classrooms, both online as well as in person, um, and actually be able to work with you in terms of teaching students how to have better research skills, being able to find information that they're looking for, and also evaluate it critically, because not everything out there is necessarily credible or good quality. So we can definitely support on that end. But also for any of our asynchronous instructors out there, we also provide support in that way. And I'll kind of touch in on how we can do that as well and still have that kind of engagement with students when it comes to research skills and critical thinking skills and information literacy. And yeah, and then I'll also touch on a little bit about research events, which yeah, I'll go into that more in depth in a bit. So with that, we can move forward. So the first research tool I really kind of wanted to outline here, in case you haven't seen it, is our Cuyamaca One search. So if you don't know or not, basically the library has access to over 100 different databases. I believe from my last count, it was 127 different databases, which is a lot. And all of them have like different focuses in terms of topics or disciplines, and other types of like academic fields and so on. So it's a lot to go through for a student, especially when they're kind of starting out and don't necessarily know how to maximize their usage of all those different types of databases. So one of the ways that we kind of created a launching point for students is through Cuyamaca OneSearch. Basically, it provides simultaneous access to multiple library databases and online collections that we have. Not necessarily all of them, which I'll kind of get into, but definitely a great majority of the chunk of our information collections are basically covered in one search. And actually, since January 1st, it's actually kind of had a little bit of a redo in terms of how it looks and how it feels. So hopefully it'll be a lot more intuitive for both faculty and for students as well. But I'll kind of do a little short demo of it right now. So basically, faculty and students can find it on our library homepage. Um, basically right here, it's going to be one of the first things that is popped up on this page is our Kumako OneSearch search box. This is where students can basically enter in certain keywords. And again, that's something also librarians can help with, because sometimes searching databases can be a little finicky in terms of what keywords you can put in. But once you kind of have some keywords in mind, we can kind of do some searching. So say if I wanted to look into, let's say about research about anatomy, just as an example, and just to kind of see like what is exactly out there. And maybe as you kind of go down the line, you start kind of refining that search and be a little bit more specific. But we kind of wanted to see what was out there specifically. As you can see, it generates pretty much over 2 million results, almost 2.5 million results just with that one keyword. Basically, this is where you can start kind of sifting down into the more relevant results, because essentially you'll be able to find like ebooks, physical books as well. Any of the physical books that we have inside the library will also be shown here, such as like this human anatomy textbook here. And more. There's also research articles, some even like streaming media, like videos will also pop up, and so on. So basically, it's covering a really good range of different types of sources. But again, that's pretty overwhelming for a student to have to go through for 2.4, almost 2.5 million results. So a lot of times when we're working with students, either in a classroom or one-on-one, we'll kind of teach them some tips and tricks on how to sift it down to more relevant results for them. Mainly through a lot of these filters that are kind of shown here, like one of like source type for like academic journals, magazines, news articles, and books as well. So you can actually narrow it down and really cut down on the amount of research that's kind of being provided here. So basically that's going to show how it's going to be done here. So essentially, once I did that, it's essentially now narrowed it down to only book related information. Uh, uh, Essentially either physical or electronic books. You can also do by peer-reviewed journals if that was something that I know a lot of faculty will often require of their students to be able to find scholarly or, in other words, peer-reviewed articles, and so on. And you can even have some other tools in terms of like access options. So once you click on it, it'll actually show you like where you can actually retrieve it. In this case, it's a physical book, so it'll actually lead to our catalog where they can actually identify where the call number is. But luckily, it provides all that information here. So they just have to go inside the library, go find it under this call number, or ask one of the librarians for assistance, and they'll be able to check it out for themselves. But a lot of our like more electronic resources. So I'm going to say like, let's go more broadly into like peer-reviewed journals, for example. You can easily sort through that. And as too, another really great way to identify if an article is peer-reviewed is this little handy icon in case they weren't enabling this filter here. But yeah, if they click on the title of it, they can see a little bit more information about this particular article. A lot of times there'll be an abstract or a summary, as probably many of us will be more aware of. But for students, it's probably still new to them. And then be able to access it versus different access points. All of these will ultimately lead to the PDF. It's just offering different overlapping coverages from all our different databases. But yeah, it'll essentially lead to the PDF where they'll be able to find that. It's just a little slow loading on my end. But yeah, so that's a really great way of where they can actually download the article. They can keep it for as long as they need it, and be able to utilize it in their research topics. Seems like it kind of slowed down on my end, but it's fine. Here's another one I can probably generate pretty fast. Let's see. Nope, seems kind of slow on my end. I can see it's more of an issue on my end, of course, right? But yeah, I'll showcase another one. But basically, that's kind of showcasing one element of that. Another thing to be also aware of too is when students are prompted to log in as well as faculty. One of the new things that kind of came out for us is that we've now transitioned over to a single sign-on system, which I know the rest of the campus is slowly kind of getting into that with the rest of the systems, but we've kind of had a head start in that way. But basically, when students try to log in remotely from home, from a cafe, from anything, they'll have this like prompt here to log in. They'll also have that prompt sometimes when they try to access a PDF directly from us. So basically, if I were to log in, it's automatically probably going to log me in already because I've already been using these databases. But essentially, it'll just be their student email. And then usually it'll default to their birth date for their password. But sometimes if they've updated it over time, that'll be that current password as well. So yeah, just something to keep aware of. We often have to help students with that a lot, or even the tech help desk assists a lot with those type of login issues. So referring them to us, and then we can kind of work with the tech help desk. That's a really great way of doing so. But yeah, so it is a really great way of kind of limiting for that. I do see a question actually. Are books listed in the source limited to those available in the library? Um, Yes and no. Most of the books that you're going to see when you kind of filter down for like books or anything like that are going to be mostly ones that we have immediately available, either electronically or through physically in the uh, I'm sorry, in the library, pretty much on the stacks, right? There will be some books though, when you try to access the option, it won't show necessarily an option for a PDF or some other type of online access for that book. It'll sometimes say, request this item through interlibrary loan. So essentially, even though we can't necessarily look book to them physically or electronically from our collections, they can still request it through interlibrary loan, which, in case you're not aware, the library basically has partnerships with hundreds of different libraries across the nation to where we can actually exchange not only uh, electronic articles, so we can actually exchange article PDFs with each other, but we can actually exchange physical books as well. So they can actually ship over a book for us to loan out to the student. Um, so yeah, so that's one way that they can uh, get access to information that even we don't necessarily have. But through us for free, they can request from another library and still get that access. A lot of times, students will often request more like articles um, uh, through interlibrary loan, which is a lot faster process because it doesn't have all that like physical shipping and delivery type of process. So for that, um, a lot like PDF that often takes like 1 to 3 business days typically. I've been using it quite a lot actually in my own research, and that's usually our kind of average, which is awesome. But yeah, I do see another question. So the Outlook login or the Canvas login? Ooh, great question. So the Canvas login, as far as I understand it, is a completely different login for now. I know they're going to eventually shift it over to a single sign-on process like ours, but for the time being, it's actually different. For example, they actually use the 8-digit version of students' birth dates for passwords. For us, yeah, it's going to be the Outlook login. So basically, their student email login is the same login, and that's the same for our faculty as well. So basically, your email login for your work is your login for the library's resources, all of our resources, essentially. Hopefully that clarifies that too. So I'm glad you asked that actually, because there is sometimes a confusion, especially with students when they're trying to log in to Canvas versus trying to log into our library resources. But hopefully once we get single sign-on pretty much through all of our systems, it'll be way easier for everyone involved. But yeah, so there's a couple other things I kind of want to address here in terms of different types of resources for students here. You might see this like dashboard where it has like different projects or saved or searches and what you viewed. So essentially when a student exits out of this search, basically anything they like added to their searches, like search history or viewed or anything like that will unfortunately wipe away. Like they won't be able to view it anymore. But there is a way for faculty and for students to actually keep any information they would like to save and keep it for another search session later on. Basically, there is this My EBSCO. If you log in, basically, all you have to do is create an account. It's a free account. It's just personalized to you. So it's a little separate from your login for all of our sources here, like I've shown. It's just really only applying to all of this dashboard features. So that's all it applies to. You don't need it unless you wanted it. But you can easily create an account. You can basically kind of just mimic the same type of login information that you have for the library anyway. So it could be the same email address, in this case, like a student's email or a faculty email, and the same password, honestly. It's a pretty simple process. That's all you need to do. And then once you do that, basically, I'll actually kind of showcase on my end. I'm pretty sure I have an account. Let's see. Let me sign in really quick. Let's see. I think I probably had it as this one then. There we go. But yeah, so once I sign in, basically it's giving me the same search. So it doesn't actually wipe away what you've been doing so far, which is awesome. But basically you can start saving searches or anything like that. So say I wanted to save it. I could save this particular article and then it will automatically save over into my dashboard. And I'll take a look at that. Yeah, so as you can see, it even saved one I actually forgot I even saved them a while ago as well. So basically, anytime you log back into my EBSCO, you'll have all of these items. You'll be able to kind of access them again. You can also even save searches. In this case, I don't have one at the moment, but it's easy enough to do so. But yeah, let's see. So I'm just going to go back to a general search and say I want to child development education. But basically, you can just keep kind of adding new types of projects and so on, and even save searches. So let's see, if I were to do that, it would just basically be, um, uh, sorry, I just blanked out for a moment. But essentially, you can basically, create an advanced search of it and then do a save of it pretty much here and there. And then you can even create projects, which is actually really nice in case a student's like working on a project and want to group into different sources for a specific research assignment, but they're also working on another research assignment, maybe near finals and such like that, and they want to kind of keep them organized and separate. They can definitely do that, which is really nice, actually. It's where they can create a name for it, even apply themselves a due date to kind of remind themselves, and even a description of it, and be able to create and start doing some searches, save some resources in there, any searches as well, which is really awesome. Yeah, so I definitely recommend it in that case. And as you can see, you can kind of see this whole overview of all my searches. And again, I can even save them right here and there. So I can save these ones for later purposes. Another thing I really want to highlight too is the concept map. So I know I've introduced this to a couple of faculty already, and they seemed really excited about it because basically it gives you a really nice visualization of your search. So in this case, like it was automatically mapping out to the child development when I clicked on it. So it provided this like terminology to it, what it describes it as. And more relevant is other semantically as well as defining relationship type of terminology. So other related terms that the search here has identified as being potentially useful to you, like in terms of maybe pioneering academic or scientist in that particular field, or other types of related terminology or topics that might be really useful. And the cool thing is that you can actually add all these to like your search. So basically I would add like child development, maybe I'm really into gene here, so I add it here. And then I could do like a see full results, and basically updates search will see two keywords being applied in the search. So I can find stuff that's related back to child development as well as to gene here. And it'll basically Sorry, yeah, I saw my internet went a little unstable there. Product of working from home today. But basically, you'll be able to come across a bunch of new sources that are specific to the psychologist here. I never knew how to pronounce his name. I'm going to be really honest. I learned about him when I was a psychology major back in the day, but I never actually heard anyone actually pronounce his name out loud. But yeah, another really cool thing of why I said to visualize the search is not only do you have this like grid format, you also have this map, which actually kind of does like a mind map type of scenario to where students can actually, again, visualize how this term that they started with is related to all these other terms. And then again, start adding different concepts or keywords and really help build their search, which I think is really useful. But yeah, so there's that too. So there's a lot of great resources available through here. I'm actually, again, going to try to showcase, like, if I were to say access now this PDF, basically it should direct me to the PDF version of this. So I'm going to do a load here, cross my fingers that it works for me, because every single time I ever do a workshop, it wants to pull one over me. But here you go. Yeah, so as you can see, it pulled up the direct PDF. I can download it. I can basically also listen to it. So I know actually a couple students have been asking me about text-to-speech features, or at least being able to hear the audio version of it. Actually, with this update that we've done to our Kunimaka One Search, a lot of these different articles are going to be able to do that. And you can actually update the playback speed. You can actually download the MP3, which is awesome. You can modulate the volume and such like that. And so it's really awesome in that sense. Yeah, so it's already playing in mine, which I should probably turn off. There you go. But yeah, and then again, you can save the item right here. You can add it to your project. You can share it with others in case maybe there's a group project and so on. So it's a really nice feature when it comes to this. But yeah, any particular questions when it comes to Kurimaka One Search? I just wanted to check in, see how everyone's looking at this tool. You can even get feedback. Do you think it will be potentially useful to you? Are you already having students use it? I would love to know that. Because I love to get a pulse read on our faculty and see where we're kind of at. I think one of the other things to kind of stress here too is also something I was going to address later, but I figured I might as well here since we can visually see it. Students can also get in contact with a librarian right from here, which is really nice. Basically, they can get in contact with a Kuyamaka librarian, or if we're not necessarily available, especially during maybe late evenings or overnight or during the weekends, they can actually get in touch with a librarian within all the different community colleges within California, which is really nice. And so basically on the bottom right here, there's this Ask a Librarian 24/7 chat. When it says 24/7, it's actually literal. Like there is always going to be a librarian staffed on this chat 24/7, 24 hours out of the day, 7 days a week. Which is really nice. All they have to do is put in their contact info, mainly just so if we can follow up with them in case there's a disconnect or if there's any follow-up things that we can reach out to them about, because maybe their initial question only started another series of questions that they have as they're kind of going through the research process. I know, I totally agree. It's very cool. I love it. And actually the last library I worked at didn't have this service, so I was like stoked when I saw that we had this available. And again, mostly during the days, especially during normal library hours, a Kunimaka librarian will actually be on call. But yeah, again, during those evenings, during the weekends, they can still get a hold of a librarian. And even if that librarian maybe can't necessarily help them with a very Kunimaka specific problem, they can actually submit a ticket to us so we can actually follow up with them as soon as one of us is available. So it's really nice. It's a really great way of having that safety net for students in case they're having problems, whatever it might be, big or small. So it's really nice in that sense. Yeah, I agree. Great service. So yeah, I was really excited to kind of promote that to you all because I don't know if a lot of students are necessarily aware of that. We do get students who are utilizing the service, but we definitely want to expand our reach to all students. But yeah, so with that, I guess I'll go back into the slide deck here. So basically, that was one starting point where you can basically come across a whole plethora of information. Actually, before I move on, there's actually one thing I could stress here is to kind of give you another visual of like how much information and research is available to students. We do have this like dedicated research tab here. And if I click on it, it'll ultimately lead to a bunch of different types of research resources, which we're going to cover in a bit, but one of which is the databases. So in case there are times when a student needs to access a specific database, which can happen in case, like, again, not every resource in our database in Kuriamaka OneSearch is covered. Essentially, you might see like certain databases like this one, says not in OneSearch. It essentially means that unfortunately doesn't have that type of coverage in OneSearch, so you would have to access this database by itself. Some are just also just very unique, and because of that, they're not as easily readable in Kuriamaka OneSearch. Particularly streaming media, particularly like films on demand, Swank, DocuSeek. You can kind of find records of them, but honestly, it's way better to look at them individually here because of the fact that they're streaming media, they're educational videos or films and all that. They read a lot better in their native database. But yeah, so this kind of gives you another look at like all the different resources here. Again, it's 127 databases. I'm actually surprised I remember that correctly. But yeah, you can even filter it by different subjects. So I know a lot of our faculty are like maybe focusing on like Arabic studies or they're teaching business, anything like that. We actually have a categorization for each of these, which is really nice. So you can actually filter for, like, say we want to look at engineering databases. We can look at the 19 or so databases that are relevant in that way, give some short descriptions of them and so on. So it's really nice in that sense. So yeah. But yeah, so with that, we can actually return back here and move into our next resource, which is actually one I'm really excited to kind of show as well. So for I know a lot of students searching through databases, and even for just librarians and faculty, it can be kind of difficult and like a little unwieldy to go into a research database because they can be a little clunky or maybe they're not as user friendly and so on. So a lot of students, and I totally understand, default to looking into Google, right, or any other internet search engine that they're kind of using. um, and while I totally understand that Google does have a little bit more user friendliness, it's designed in that sense, right? It's not particularly great when it comes to searching for research articles. One of the problems being that Google doesn't necessarily search well for our research based information. It typically is a lot better for web pages and all that stuff. But even when you've come across a research article um, in um, in Google, oftentimes the student's going to be confronted with a paywall because it's going to ask for a subscription, it's going to ask for a purchase fee, all that. So even though there is the alternative to Google Scholar, that even has its own limitations. What we're actually launched out starting a little late last year is LibKey Nomad. And this is basically our better alternative to searching through Google Scholar and to searching through Google, or at least to enhance that experience. Because essentially it's a one-click or maybe two-click type of instant access to the library's resources while you search the internet. So it's really easy, it's free to use for students and faculty, and again, supports that equitable access to research and information. Um, and yeah, it's just a way better alternative to relying on Google Scholar. So I can do a little demo of that because I'm really excited about this particular resource. So basically, all you would have to do is really you can just Google for libkey nomad. I know I already directed there, but I just kind of wanted to show just how easy it is to find. You just kind of type it in, find libkey nomad, go to the download page here. So we'll head over there. Again, takes us back here. We just have to go to get libkey nomad now. Click on the browser that you're currently using. So it is available for like Safari, it's available for Edge, for Chrome. So in this case, I'm using Chrome, right? It'll basically take over to the web store where this, it's essentially a browser extension is located. So once it loads, I'm actually going to remove it from Chrome because it's easy to put back in. So I'm going to remove it really quick just to kind of show how easy to get it. So I add it to Chrome, I'll add the extension. And then once it starts adding to it, should direct me to a new page here. So basically the student has to just find our organization, which in this case is just Kurimaka. They can either just scroll down or type it in and be able to find it right here. Click on it. And that's all you have to do. You can actually just start clicking out of this and say, like, I know in like English 120, for example, there are certain projects that will look for historical preservation type of information, and sometimes wanting to look for more academically inclined articles. In this case, say I was like interested in Alcatraz Island as like maybe a historical preservation type of thing. And you know what? I'm going to go to Wikipedia because even though we don't recommend using Wikipedia as a source, we do often tell them like, hey, take a look at the references, right? And some of these will actually have this new prompt that you didn't see before until you got libkey nomad. It'll essentially be libkey kind of like symbol saying, hey, maybe do an access point here. So in this case, like say like this view ebook. So if I click on it, essentially takes me back to the library's collections and takes me to this exact ebook that we have available. So yeah, it took me to the ebook. I can immediately start accessing the ebook right then and there, and even download certain pages, anything like that. So it's awesome when it comes to that. Yeah, it's pretty seamless as it comes with that. Yeah, I can't really fault it for really anything. Honestly, there's even another time, say you're doing another search and maybe you're wanting to do like specifically research article or something like that. So I want to look for, let's see, looking for something in particular, kind of like a research journal page in particular. Let's see if I can find one really quick. If not, that's totally fine. How about journal? Just to kind of make it more specific. Again, this is kind of showcasing also how difficult libkey, or not libkey, how difficult Google can be trying to find an actual article. But say like these type of articles here. Actually, let's check out JSTOR really quick for it. Let's see. So it does have all these options. I wanted to see if it had the libkey. It doesn't seem like it read it, mainly because JSTOR is not technically a research journal. It's an actual database. But oh, here's one. That's what I'm looking for. Taylor in France. This should just make it more specific. So in case like a student actually comes across this type of like area here, it should start prompting in a access option. So basically just click on this, it'll take them right to that particular article, or at least even if we don't necessarily have the article, it'll direct them to interlibrary loan services. So they can actually request this article again through that interlibrary loan service that I was kind of alluding to and describing before, to where we can get it from another partner library. So it's pretty seamless in that, in the sense that it's immediately just taking you to the information that you need. Yeah, I really have no cons with this um, particular tool. I had my doubts when I first heard about it, but honestly, having play tested it and worked with students about it, it's become a game changer for a lot of students and for a lot of faculty. To where I know even some of the faculty have now started incorporating that into their Canvas containers and such, information about this. So again, if there's you want any information about this particular resource, particularly like instructions on how to use it, a video or anything like that, feel free to contact us. We can definitely incorporate that information or help you incorporate that information in your Canvas course. So yeah. But yeah, with that, we can move into another resource. Um, so this one, I'm not going to necessarily do any demos or any some such. I'm sure a lot of us have already touched on ChatGPT in particular. But basically, what I wanted to kind of highlight here is that we've actually been, as librarians, helping faculty better incorporate AI as a research tool for students. Because again, even though there are definitely some legitimate considerations and limitations with generative AI as it is now with ChatGPT and other types of tools, they still have their uses. And that's what we kind of balance it out for students, is that not to necessarily rely or depend on these like solely, but to use it as an assistance tool, not something that will do the work for them, right? And so a lot of times, actually, we've been working with, like, say, the psychology department, with the engineering department, and kind of better incorporating these type of tools in a much more nuanced discussion with students. Not necessarily just praise it, necessarily downplaying its usefulness, but to really have that balanced outlook when it comes to AI. So a lot of times, actually, in practice, we've actually been working with students on how to like brainstorm and refine their own research questions and hypotheses using AI. For example, ChatGPT can actually take on certain types of personas or roles that will help them, debate and kind of refine and kind of contest their questions about research, to really kind of guide them to have a little bit more of a critical thinking aspect and have different types of viewpoints on a topic or an issue that they're kind of trying to address. We've also worked with students about processing research and statistical data as well, and how AI can actually help, utilize that in a much more efficient and more user-friendly way for students. But also, on the other hand, we've also talked with students about developing critical thinking skills, especially when it comes to evaluating what is being generated by AI. Mainly in terms of the lack of voice per se in like what is being written from like ChatGPT, but also in terms of what sources it's using. Because one of the things that students may not necessarily realize is that ChatGPT, at least its current free format, has been disconnected from the open web and hasn't been updated with new information since 2021. So a lot has happened since 2021. So any new information it has a disconnect from. And also another problem too is that even though it's actually really good for assisting you with literature searches, like finding sources for your project, you also have to be very wary of what those sources are, because sometimes they can be ghost records or ghost sources to where ChatGPT literally just made them up. So it's something that we as librarians kind of have to stress with students and really kind of develop trips and tricks to really being able to suss out like what exactly is legitimate from ChatGPT and what is not. So I think it really does help students be able to have a much more uh, mindful approach. ChatGPT, again, more as an assistance tool rather than just something that will do the work for them. But yeah, so it's something we're really excited to do, and we're trying to gear ourselves as a library to be one of the forefronts in having that discussion with students and with supporting faculty as well. And I think with that, is there any questions about anything I've covered so far? Any thoughts or anything like that before I move into the next kind of phase of our discussion here? Just wanted to check in. I know I've passed a lot of information, so. But yeah, so I'll move forward. But again, feel free to leave any comments, any questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. So yeah, so again, this is more the faculty side of things. So a lot of the stuff that I just presented is something that students can use, that faculty can use, and so this is one of the things where we can really directly support faculty in a lot of different ways, particularly when it comes to instructional support, really providing an opportunity for students to learn about these different skills in the classroom, whether it's online or if it's in person or if it's high flex or hybrid or any other sort of format or modality. So basically, one of the ways that we can do that is through synchronous library instruction. So this is one of our more traditional services to where we can actually visit your classroom, wherever you might be. It's highly customized to your needs and to the course's needs, so we can basically tailor it to what you specifically want students to know more about, or maybe you've noticed a certain gap or an issue or an obstacle or challenge that they're facing, and you just want someone to kind of help them out a little bit more, to where we can kind of give them a workshop session with them to really gain those skills or refine them, or relearn them even as well. One of the things I'm really excited about too is, particularly on Rita's front, my colleague here on the call, has been super critical in providing more equitable access to this service by offering it in both Arabic and in English. So this has been super critical, especially for our ESL learners or ESL students, and any other students that are more comfortable in Arabic. So it's been really great on that aspect. Rita, was there anything you wanted to add on this? Because it's definitely your your wheelhouse. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, not much, but yeah, if anyone needs, especially if you have Arabic speakers, that are not understanding or need more help, especially in searching, I know that it's a big part of it, that they might have difficult researching and searching for articles and peer reviewed. Um, you can definitely let me know. I'm happy to help with anything. And as Matthew has said, we can go to the classroom and talk about that, or vice versa, where you can come into the library. But yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rita. But yeah, again, Rita's been critical to providing this very like equitable practice for students, and then also we again provide this both in person through HiFlex, through online, and we just want to be really understanding that like instructors have different types of modalities that they're kind of handling, and therefore we kind of have to meet faculty and students in different ways, whatever that might be. So we definitely helped instruct with HiFlex, instruction with online, with in person, and also in case you don't have like the space to really have students be on a computer and all that kind of stuff, to really work with us, searching through databases and so on. We actually kind of have that covered. We actually do have a library instruction lab inside the library to where you can actually have the students visit us. So you can have your whole class do a visit with us. We can have a little bit of a tour maybe of the library, depending on what you would like to have them know more about. And then ultimately go into that lab and where we can really get into those skills and be able to refine it. We do have a limited space for it. It's about like 32 students is probably max for it. But if you have like a class that's about that size, that's perfect, or smaller. You can totally do that too. And we do customize it in terms of being a 30 to a 45 to a 60-minute session. So depending on what your needs are, we totally understand that, you only have so much limited class time with your students, right? So we do want to be respectful of that. So we can definitely work with you and try to focus on the key content and information that really will help the students succeed. Um, and then, yeah, again, students can learn anything from like searching databases to searching information via the internet. So we can even go into like libkey and all that. Evaluating information, because as we discussed, not every piece of information out there, whether even if it's research or online information, is necessarily the most credible or maybe the most relevant to what they're looking for. So we can definitely develop those skills as well. We can also maybe identify like what is a primary source versus a secondary source and so on. Developing research questions, that's definitely one of the ways we can definitely be at the forefront for students, because I think that's honestly one of the most understated obstacles for students, is even just developing their topic in the first place to really guide where their search is going to be. Because I feel like some students might be working backwards where they're trying to find sources to inform a topic they're still developing, right? In some cases, but sometimes it can be a little harder for them. Or using generative AI for research as well, as we've kind of discussed earlier. So we can definitely assist in all those different aspects. Now, we didn't want to leave necessarily asynchronous instructors out of this either, because yeah, that's a whole other type of challenge, right? In terms of trying to engage students. And luckily for us, we do have a way of doing that through asynchronous library instruction. Again, it's fully customizable to what you need and what to the course's needs. It's available in Arabic and English. Rita's again been critical in that aspect. We also try to make these type of tools interactive, and I'm going to actually showcase like what exactly this asynchronous component actually looks like. Um, so we try to make them as interactive as possible, so students still uh, with us if we're not necessarily physically or just synchronously available. Let's see. Um, and the other really key thing is that it's fully embeddable in Canvas, which is another really great aspect of what I'm going to showcase here. So basically, our guides are basically represented in what we call what our asynchronous instruction is represented in is through research guides. So I'm going to showcase what exactly that looks like really quick. Flip over really quick. Just gonna switch over to here, go back to Kumaka website. And as it loads, I'm just going to go quickly back to that research end of things. And right next to the databases option that I was going to showcasing before, we also have this research guides. And this is the asynchronous feature that we have. And these are kind of like some practice ones that you can actually look up. I'm actually going to put them in the chat in case you're kind of interested in seeing more about them. But basically, this is where you can actually see different examples of what we currently have. So say I'm looking at one that we have on in both English and Arabic to kind of showcase that aspect as well. So say with the Psychology 120 class, we actually tailored this particular research guide based on what the faculty was kind of requesting. And it's available in both English and in Arabic. So you'll actually see this Arabic translation for any of the boxes. And it talks more about like the certain requirements of that assignment. And then we kind of guided the student more into like, how do you tell what are scholarly sources versus more professional or quote unquote popular periodicals and so on. Again, it's all in Arabic as well. And then we even have some activities as well to where students can actually impart, certain topics that they have in mind and other things and help generate keywords as well, if they would like to. But yeah, it's another really great resource in that aspect as well. And then how to read a research article, which actually was a big thing for this instructor. They really wanted students to be able to actually impart that. So we have some tables here or kind of more of an accordion to where they can actually showcase like different aspects of what is an abstract, what is an introduction, and so on. Some tips and tricks from a librarian, and so on. But yeah, I definitely encourage looking at them. They're fully requestable from faculty, the same way that is requestable for synchronous instruction as well. And basically for both of those, if you go to the library webpage and you see this faculty services, this is where you can actually put in a request for either, again, a research guide or for a synchronous instruction component. There's a lot of information here, but basically you can find the library instruction where you can request it. It's a very simple form. We just try to get some key information from you. Of course, it's going to ask me to sign in, but let's see if I can get it to, nah, it's going to do the multi-factor. It's fine. Basically, it's a very simple MS form. It's just going to ask for your contact info, just some basic key components about your research assignment and the course, what really you're looking for from us. And we could definitely follow up with you, have more clarification and conversation about that. Same thing with research guides. This is where you can asynchronous instruction. Same type of form, very, very similar, and you put it in. We do ask for, just for the sake of time, we do ask for like about a 2-week lead time. It's preferable as much time as you can give us to really kind of work on this with you. That would be great. But we've had faculty where they realize they need some assistance and they requested it like 2 days ahead. We were still able to accommodate them. It's just more for scheduling purposes and being able to really dedicate some time to really work on these research guides or the content in the instruction to really maximize the usage and value for the students. So we do ask for as much lead time as you can spare. So we totally understand if that's not always the case. We all get busy, right? So it doesn't necessarily prevent you from doing it or disqualify you in some way, we definitely encourage you to request it no matter what time it is. And we'll still work with you on that aspect. But yeah, so with that, there's that aspect. And then this next slide here is actually something we're kind of trying to push forward a little bit more as well as another feature of librarian involvement that maybe you're not necessarily aware of, because again, it's fairly new for us, is being embedded in your courses in some meaningful fashion or form. So beyond just the research guide or beyond the synchronous one-time session that we have with your students, we would love to have librarian faculty partnerships in your Canvas course, whether that is, again, the possible roles are customizable. It depends on what exactly you're kind of looking from us, but it could be anything from like, co-creating and managing a research assignment. So maybe you want, more specific instructions for your students to be able to find the resources that they really need for your specific research project for them. And so that way they don't have those type of challenges or pain points. We can definitely assist in that aspect. It could even be also like maybe you have a discussion forum in your Canvas container, to where we just monitor and manage it, to where if they have questions about research, whatever kind of challenges they're facing, we can kind of work with them in that aspect as well. We'd be happy to do that. And again, you can just request it via email. There's no form specific to this one because, again, this is fairly new for us. We just ask to have as much advance notice as you can, but honestly, it can always be an ongoing conversation with you. Even if it may not work for this current semester, we can always talk about it for next semester or the next semester after that. So we can totally work with you on your pace and your time as well. And again, possible roles are endless. Like it can be as in-depth or as minimal as you would like in terms of that course embedded. We just want to try to maximize our involvement with you and with your students. Um, yeah, just a couple of things here because I are almost at the top of the hour again. Is yeah, we do have some really great in-person research help. So in case you're not aware, we actually do have a dedicated research help desk located on the second floor of the library. So once you go up the stairs, we're immediately facing you. So it's staffed by a librarian. Pretty much Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 7:30. So during our normal business hours, there is going to be a librarian there to assist students. So in case they want to have that in-person type of one-on-one consultation with us about anything that they need, whether it's finding a book, finding a piece of information online, we're there to help them out. But yeah, but as I've stressed before, sometimes, especially for our asynchronous instructors, or maybe students who are working so remotely from campus that they can't really make that trip as easily, we do have some excellent online research help. Mainly through that Ask a Librarian chat, which again you saw in the Kuyamaka One search. We actually also had it in the library homepage, which actually I can showcase a little bit right here. Let me see. Yeah. So on the library homepage, you can actually see the Ask a Librarian chat as well. I think it's just slowly loading on my end, but let me refresh a little. Yeah, there it goes. So yeah, as you can see, it shows that first name, that email, that question that you need to ask us. You can actually also see it in any of the research guides. So it's fully embeddable in that way. So again, that's another element to that engagement with the students, even if we're not physically or online present with them um, in an asynchronous format, right? So they can easily get in contact with the student, with a librarian. But yeah, so there was that as well. I know I just accelerated to the last slide, but yeah, so that's another really great thing where you can find it on the homepage, you can find it on OneSearch, you can find it in the research guides. Students can also email us as well directly. We also have an email as well. I'll actually put in the chat just for the sake of it. It'll be just kuyamaka.librarians@gccd.edu. There it is in the chat. That's basically our comprehensive email, to where it sends to all of our librarians, and one of us can start addressing with that student. But yeah, I want to thank you for staying on, and hopefully this workshop provides some insight for your classes, especially when it comes to research projects and research help for students. We definitely want to stress our presence with students and really maximize their time with us. So hopefully this was super helpful for you in some fashion or form. You were able to get something new out of it. But yeah, I'm available for right now for questions since we have a few minutes left. But otherwise, that was pretty much my whole spiel. Oh, you're very welcome, Carol. Yeah, I hope it was helpful. And again, it had some introductory elements, but hopefully something that was also new, especially with a lot of the updates that we were making with like libkey nomad, with OneSearch, and anything like that. So, but yeah, feel free to unmute yourself at this point. Also, stop sharing, um, and then I can also stop recording.